विश्व क्षय रोग दिवस पर आज स्वास्थ्य विभाग और यूटी स्वास्थ्य मिशन द्वारा राज्य स्तरीय मुख्य समारोह का आयोजन किया गया। अनिम्स के लेक्चर हॉल में हुए इस कार्यक्रम में स्वास्थ्य सचिव डॉक्टर अनिल अग्रवाल मुख्य अतिथि थे। इस मौके पर स्वास्थ्य सेवा निदेशक डॉक्टर सूजा एंथोनी, द्वीपों में राष्ट्रीय क्षय रोग उन्मूलन कार्यक्रम के संयुक्त सचिव डॉक्टर पी लाल, डॉक्टर एम सिद्धाराजू, डॉक्टर एम के साहा के अलावा डॉक्टर्स, विद्यार्थी और चिकित्सा कर्मी उपस्थित थे। सबसे पहले नर्सिंग स्कूल के विद्यार्थियों ने स्वागत गीत पेश किया। मुख्य अतिथि और अन्य गणमान्य लोगों ने दीप प्रज्वलित कर इस समारोह का उद्घाटन किया। राष्ट्रीय क्षय रोग उन्मूलन कार्यक्रम के संयुक्त सचिव डॉक्टर पी लाल ने उपस्थिति का स्वागत करते हुए द्वीपों में क्षय रोग की स्थिति पर मल्टीमीडिया प्रस्तुति के माध्यम से विस्तार से जानकारी दी।
World TB Day, as we all know, World TB Day is organized every year with the aim to create awareness or increase the awareness level about tuberculosis among the masses, and also to reaffirm our commitment towards our contribution to eliminate this disease from the world. So as you can see, this year's theme is commit, invest and deliver. So as I said, awareness generation is key to this disease, and to this end, this year Ministry of Health and Family Welfare organized a 100-day TB campaign starting from December 2024 in 330 odd selected districts of the country to create awareness, to detect the missed cases, to garner support of the individuals to come forward and provide nutritional support to the TB patients. And though none of our districts were selected for this campaign, we also conducted this campaign across the islands during this 100-day period. And also we conducted a host of activities in all the islands, including at the community level, at the panchayat level, at the educational institutions, at the health institutions. And yesterday we also had a sand art competition which had an overwhelming response at the Carbon Scope beach. So the awareness generation activities are ongoing, and I think that is one of the key to combat this disease, to disseminate the right information among the masses, right to the grassroots level. Now, as far as the theme is concerned, they're asking for commitment. So commitment at all levels, commitments at the level of the patients to complete their treatment, at the level of the community, the commitment at the level of the administrative heads, the political masters, and the health institutions, the doctors, the paramedics. So everyone should reiterate their commitment to fight against this disease and play the role assigned to them to the best, so that we are able to achieve victory over this disease. Second part is, of course, invest. So as far as invest is concerned, so here invest means invest money as well as time. That again is very important because this is a global disease, and as the saying goes, because this infection spreads by air, TB anywhere is TB everywhere, because it spreads through air, and the world is a global village. So investing, it is not only about the developing countries investing, even the developed countries are required to invest in the fight against this disease, and the investment should not come down till the goal of containing or eliminating the disease is concerned. More and more investment towards research, towards new drugs, towards new diagnostics are required so that we are able to stand a chance against eliminating this disease. And finally, of course, deliver. With all these things in place, everyone has their role assigned, and that role has to be assigned to perfection with commitment, with responsibility. Only then we will be able to achieve what we are longing for. Now coming to the presentation, I'll just present a brief facts about the TB, the global and Indian scenario, and some aspects what we are doing in these islands. Now, with the improved diagnostics and some drugs we have, the World Health Organization gave a target which is called the famous NTB strategy. So, the World Health Organization and the United Nations come up with the Sustainable Development Goals. So, the present Sustainable Development Goals are 17 in number and they have to be achieved by 2030. So, prior to this, there were these Millennium Development Goals which were conceived in the year 2000 and they had to be achieved by 2015. So there the target was to reduce the incidence by 50% when compared to 2000. So there was some success in that. So buoyed by that success, WHO now gave this ambitious target of three parameters: reducing the number of TB deaths when compared to 2015 by 90% by the year 2030, and again reducing the TB incidence when compared to 2015 to 80% by the year 2030, and the expenditure to be incurred by the TB families towards the treatment should be zero. So that again, those were the targets, sustainable development targets to be achieved by 2030. And the government of India went one step ahead and said that we will be achieving this by 2025. But where are we? So if you look at the global and Indian scenario, so the WHO brings out this global TB report every year. So as per the global TB report 2024, so the incidence of TB cases worldwide was 108 lakhs, about 1 crore cases. And the estimated incidence in India was 27 lakhs. So if you look at the incidence per lakh, globally it is 134 per lakhs, and the national number is 195 per lakhs. And again, mortality due to TB, worldwide 12.5 lakh people died due to TB, and out of this 3.32 lakh died in our country. As far as the multi-drug resistant TB is concerned, 4 lakh cases are estimated to have happened globally and about 30,000 cases in India. So when we compare it with the NTB goals, it can be seen that the incidence decreased by 17.7% in India from 2015 to 2023, which is 8% more than the global decline. But again, we were aiming at 80% and we are not anywhere near that. And again, there was a 21.4% decline in deaths in India from 2015 to 23. That is, in 15 it was 28 per lakh and now it has come down to 22 per lakh. So again, we are far away from the target. So coming to the basics of tuberculosis, we all know it is an airborne infection. Whenever a patient with pulmonary TB who has sputum, who is sputum positive or microbiologically confirmed, he coughs, sneezes, shouts. So this bacteria are released as droplets, and anyone who is inhaling that air inhales that bacteria. It enters via the respiratory tract. So the interesting part is this slide. So once the Mycobacterium tuberculosis enters humans, so the path it takes in different humans or different sets of humans is variable or is extremely different. So that is a challenge which we are facing today. And the thing is that the factor which determines how it is going to affect differently is the immunity. So the fact of the matter is that the immune response to TB, even today, it is not fully understood. So when we do IEC, we just say that if your immune system is weak, immunity goes down, then you are likely to develop TB. But the microbiology people over here will know that that is an oversimplification of what actually it is. So coming to what happens when somebody is exposed to TB, 70% of cases the infection is cleared. The innate immunity or the first line defense is able to clear the bacteria from them, and basically nothing happens. In remaining 30%, the first line defense is not able to clear the bacteria, but again we have other defense which is called the adaptive immunity that comes into play, and that is able to contain the disease, contain in the sense prevent it from multiplying. So that is this 30%. And in this 30%, again 95% of cases are successfully contained, which we call the latent TB infection. So in these cases, the immunity and the bacteria are at perfect harmony. The bacteria is not multiplying, the immune system is not damaging our system. So there is no symptoms, no radiological features. But the problem is, again in this 5% of cases, whenever there is some immunity going down, it can progress to active disease. And similarly, there are early progresses. Out of this 30%, some will break down into active TB disease. So the problem here is, we don't know why this happens, why this behaves differently in different individuals. Again, here these people, this 70%, they are heroes, nothing happens to them, well and good. And again, this latent TB, this 90%, and this who are contained throughout the life, again nothing happens to them. And whenever the immunity goes down or the bacteria gets the upper hand, then the active TB disease happens. So once they have active TB disease, again it is easy for us. We know what tests to do and how to treat them, and cure them, or get a favorable response. But because this 90% of the cases out of the infected 30% are having latent TB, and research by ICMR has shown that 40% of the Indian population is having latent TB. So that is a huge number, and out of that only 5 or 10% will develop active TB at some point in their time. So how to deal with them is a big challenge for the public health managers, as well as at the ground level, because you cannot go and test all the people to find out the latent TB infection, and also you cannot go and treat, because you don't know out of that latent TB who is going to develop active TB. But again, we know some things from the clinical and epidemiological studies, that there are some risk factors where if those risk factors are present, the chances of developing active TB is high. So those are the risk factors. So in our country, at the top is of course malnutrition. We have smoking, alcohol abuse, diabetes, HIV infection, other medical conditions, and patients on immunosuppression drugs. So all of you will agree that these are not uncommon, very common things which we encounter. And all this subset of people are at risk of breaking down into active TB. So again, it makes sense to look for latent TB in these people, and then if it comes out to be latent TB, treat them. So again, there are some vulnerable groups who are at increased risk of developing TB. That includes the contacts of TB patients, people living in the overcrowded spaces, healthcare workers, and migrant workers. So again, this I don't want to go much into this. The symptoms, all of you know, these are the symptoms of active pulmonary TB. And of course, TB can affect any other organ in our body except nail and hair. Depending on the site of involvement, you can get different symptoms. So today, what are the tests we have for diagnosis of TB? So the sputum smear microscopy is the oldest test which we still use, and the chest X-ray, very commonly used test. But again, the problem with sputum smear microscopy is that it is not very sensitive. We can miss a lot of cases in this. So it depends on the different factors, the number of bacterial count in the specimen, the ability of the lab technician, the microscope, so on and so forth. So these are the latest tests which have come in the diagnosis of tuberculosis. So these are molecular tests. This detects the DNA of the Mycobacterium tuberculosis, and these tests are very sensitive and very specific. It can be done in 2 hours. It tells us about the diagnosis as well as the resistance pattern of the disease. So we have these machines in our islands also in the different health institutions, and our program also supports the viral hepatitis control program, hepatitis B, C viral load testing, and with the CBNAT. So this is the CBNAT machine, which is also called the Gene Expert machine. This is actually made by a US company, and this is the TrueNat machine. This is indigenously developed by ICMR in our country, and the cost is much low with TrueNat. Again, the line probe assay test is there to detect the resistance to the first line as well as second line anti-TB drugs. So, and again, liquid culture and drug susceptibility tests are used, to follow up cases with drug-resistant TB, how they are progressing. And how do we find cases? What is the strategic approach to find cases? We do passive case finding, intensive case finding, and active case finding. So passive case finding is nothing but when the patient comes to the hospital with symptoms. We write the investigation, doctor examines, writes the examinations and finds out. Intensified case finding, again the patient comes to the hospital, but for some other reason. He may be a diabetic, he comes to repeat his medicines. But it is the duty of the doctor to ask for symptoms, because that is a vulnerable group. Similarly, the smokers, they may be coming to the tobacco control program for tobacco de-addiction thing, something like that. So again, intensified case finding is a provider initiative action. The provider should actively think that there could be TB, this is a vulnerable group, and ask for symptoms even though the patient is not coming up with symptoms. Active case finding, of course, we go to the community house-to-house survey and try to find out cases. So what are the supports we provide for successful treatment to the patients? So as we all know, the drug-sensitive TB, the treatment duration is 6 months, and definitely the patient needs some support to ensure that he completes the 6 months of treatment, because these drugs have got adverse effects. So the treatment supporter, which is the ASHA worker or the ANM, regularly is in touch with the patient for the 6 months and helps them to negotiate that period and complete the course of treatment. Also for drug-resistant TB, we have counselors in place who also counsel the patient about the adverse effect and the importance of completing the treatment. In addition, the Government of India is providing rupees 1,000 per month under the Nikshay Poshan Yojana directly to the patient in his bank account. And nutritional support is also provided every month by Nikshay Mitras who are from the community. So again, this slide shows that it's a social problem and it needs a multi-sectoral approach. The health department alone will not be able to eliminate this tuberculosis, because it has got the drivers of the epidemic are all this poor living conditions, overcrowding, malnutrition, poor working conditions, so on and so forth. So the involvement of all stakeholders is important to eliminate tuberculosis. Coming to the stats for Andaman Nicobar Islands. So the Government of India is impressing upon to increase the testing for TB so that we don't miss cases. So in Andaman Nicobar Islands, we did the test 2,387 per lakh population, whereas the India data for the same is 1,710 per lakh population. TB notification rate was 137 per lakh population, whereas the national was 179 per lakh population. And out of the last year, we notified 534 cases. So out of those, 445 were new cases. Previously treated were 50 cases. And drug-resistant TB was 39 cases. Whereas at the national level, 84% were new cases and 12 were previously treated cases. And the DRTB percent was 2.5, whereas we have assigned 7.3% drug-resistant TB. And death rate again 3.9%, whereas the national average is 3.6%. So this is the district-wise notification of DSTB and DRTB. So the South Andaman notified 394, North and Middle 34, and Nicobar 67. So if we look at the presumptive TB examination over the years, we have definitely increased the testing. In 2015 it was 1,312 per lakh. It went up to 2,734. So now we are around 2,387 per lakh. Whereas Government of India wants us to increase the testing up to 3,000 per lakh. So again, if we look the trend in the Andaman Nicobar Islands, so 2015 we notified around nearly 700 cases. So but again, as we see in the previous slide, the testing was less. It was around 1,312 per lakh only. So again, this is not the incidence, this is the notification, how many we have detected. So that indicates that the incidence would have been much more because the testing was low, we might have missed cases. As the years progressed, the testing increased, but the number of cases we detect remains almost last 2 years around between 500 and 530, 540. So that shows that though there is a decline, we need to look for alternative strategies. Just finding out the cases and treating them will not bend the curve to decrease the incidence. We need to look into preventive aspects also. So this is the Pradhan Mantri TB Mukht Bharat Abhiyan which the Government of India launched, where the support of the community was sought to have provide nutritional support on a monthly basis to the TB infected people. And in our islands, our Honorable HLG led from the front. He registered as Nikshay Mitra and adopted patients. Similarly, now the Chief Secretary sir has also registered. Our Secretary Health sir has also registered and is supporting patients. Many other secretaries have registered. Our Director Health Services is also a Nikshay Mitra. She is supporting patients. Many of our doctors are supporting patients. We have people from the business community, the Panchayati Raj people. We have got good response coming from different corners for this initiative. And recently the ANITCO, with the constant thrust by our Chief Secretary sir and our Secretary Health sir, ANITCO has agreed to support 50 patients for 1 year, and they have earmarked 6 lakh rupees from the CSR fund for this activity. So that is a great achievement, and our Secretary Health sir had a great role to play in this to get this CSR funds. So this is the status of people being supported. There are some photographs of. So again, as I said, only detecting and treating cases will not bend the curve of decreasing the notification. We'll have to look at the preventive aspects also. So again, the airborne infection control in the health facilities have to be strengthened. The cuff corners have to be established. And the airborne infection control kit has to be given to all the patients. They have to be taught about cough etiquette and safe disposal of sputum. Again, as I said, the drivers are the other comorbidities, the smoking, the diabetes, the HIV. So collaboration with all the national programs is important to keep the TB cases at check, and not to forget the malnutrition. And again, the latent TB infection has to be tested and treated. So that is again something which is very difficult for us to get it done on field, because latent TB, as I said, these are people like you and me who do not have any symptoms. To convince them for it to undergo a testing and get treated if it comes positive is a challenge. And then the Government of India through ICMR has launched this adult BCG vaccination in the districts of South Andaman and North and Middle Andaman, and offering them to all these people who are vulnerable for to see the response over a 3-year period, so that to find out if BCG vaccination does help or not. This again, our target was about 20,000 people. We could cover, I think, about 7,000 odd only.
अनिम्स के एसोसिएट प्रोफेसर डॉक्टर नटराज एम ने एंटी टीबी थेरेपी के हाल के अपडेट्स के बारे में बताया।
So by definition, pulmonary tuberculosis can have a lung involvement with or without involvement of other organs. But if it is an extrapulmonary tuberculosis, by definition there should be no other pulmonary involvement. Only it should have a other organ involvement. Moving on to the resistant forms of tuberculosis. So there are wide types of resistance. So first is your monoresistance. So it is resistant to one drug. Then you have INH monoresistant, which is resistant only to your isoniazid. Then you have your rifampicin resistance, so which is resistant to your rifampicin. And then the important form of resistance, which is your MDR tuberculosis, so which is resistant to both rifampicin and isoniazid, with or without resistance to other drugs. And then we have even more deadlier form of resistance, which is your pre-XDR and your XDR. So pre-XDR is you are resistant to rifampicin, isoniazid and fluoroquinolones. So it could be either a levofloxacin or a moxifloxacin, and you have your extensive XDR. This extensive drug resistant tuberculosis, that is your XDR, where you are resistant to rifampicin, isoniazid, levofloxacin plus one of the important Cat1 drugs, which could be your bedaquiline or your linezolid. So this is important. This is why we need to protect both levoflox and linezolid, so that once the patient starts becoming resistant to both of the drugs, and we start facing an important issue. So before we start any patient on treatment, whether it is drug sensitive or it is drug resistant, we have certain pre-treatment evaluations which has to be done. So we just let it be the common blood tests like CBC, LFT, RFT, electrolytes, gene expert, and we are one of the states in the country where everybody is offered an upfront gene expert, and both diabetes and hypertension, which is now we are doing it for all TB patients, and our data is more than 95% for all patients in the state was diagnosed with tuberculosis, and also with HBsAg and HCV. Fortunately, if it is drug sensitive, whether it is in the lungs or it is outside the lungs, the treatment is just the same if it is drug sensitive tuberculosis. So we treat them with Cat1 ATT drugs, which is your rifampicin, isoniazid, ethambutol and pyrazinamide, and the duration of treatment is for 168 days. So we have 56 days of intensive phase with HRE, that is your rifampicin, isoniazid and ethambutol, and you have 112 days of HRE, that is your rifampicin, isoniazid, ethambutol. I'm sorry, intensive phase also has pyrazinamide. Earlier we were treating only with HNR, and now with the studies done across the country showing that up to 30% resistant to isoniazid, so we have also included HRE, that is your isoniazid, rifampicin and your ethambutol. And then we have a separate regimen for INH monoresistant, which is 6 to 9 months of rifampicin, ethambutol, levoflox and your pyrazinamide. So here we exclude INH, that is your ethambutol and isoniazid, and replace it with levoflox, and now mandatory first line LPA. That is, any patient who is diagnosed with pulmonary tuberculosis, the sputum is sent for first line LPA to look for your INH monoresistant. Similarly, we also have pre-treatment evaluation for drug resistant tuberculosis. So it is kindly more, it is kind of more detailed than drug sensitive, because here we have to look into your nutritional status, clinical examination, prior history, patient has any drug abuse, alcohol issues, and this is where the TB treatment has evolved over the years. Before it was a sanatorium treatment, now it is a multi-speciality treatment where psychiatry is involved, ophthalmology is involved, cardiology is involved, because every drug has to get an evaluation from them or fitness from them. Without that, you won't be able to start a regimen. So these are the blood evaluations which is actually we'll do it. So it could be normal blood test which we do it for the drug sensitive, but here urine pregnancy test is involved, because if the patient is pregnant, the MDR need to be given caution, or we need to change the regimen because it is potential teratogenic, and ECG also has to be done because majority of the MDR drugs has a cardiac complication. So we need to monitor the QTC interval. These are the current MDR regimens which we have. So one, we have the shorter regimen which is 9 to 11 months, and another one is the longer regimen. They were time where we had to give MDR treatment for 24 months. For 6 months patient had to take injection alternate days, but fortunately we are far ahead from those times. So we have less duration of treatment with non-injection drugs, so that the patient's compliance is also much better. So in the shorter regimen, you give 6 months of 4 to 6 months of bedaquiline, levoflox, clofazimine, pyrazinamide, ethambutol, idocyanate, and ethionamide, and you have 5 months of levofloxacin, clofazimine, pyrazinamide, and ethambutol. So once, if the patient becomes resistant to 2 or more drugs here, then we have no choice of shifting over to the longer MDR regimen. So the longer MDR regimen is for 18 to 20 months, which is your bedaquiline, levoflox, linezolid, cyclosalin, and clofazimine. So the 18 to 20 is that is, if you decide to give 8 months of bedaquiline, then it becomes 20 months of treatment.
कार्यक्रम के दौरान नेहरू युवा केंद्र की ओर से जागरूकता स्किट प्रस्तुत किया गया।
अरे ओ सांबा, क्या हो गया? काले बहुत खांस रहा है।
नहीं सरदार, इसे तो कुछ दिनों से खांसी हो रही है।
ए, तुझे कब से खांसी हो रही है?
सरदार यही 3-4 दिनों से सर।
नहीं सरदार, ये तो झूठ बोल रहा है। इन्हें तो 2 हफ्ते से ज्यादा खांसी हो रही है।
तुझे नहीं पता 2 हफ्ते से ज्यादा खांसी होने से टीबी के लक्षण होते हैं? ठीक है, एक काम कर, अभी से क्या किया जाए अभी इसका?
सरदार, मैंने सुना है रामगढ़ के निवासी एक नया अस्पताल खुला है, जहाँ पर जय और वीरू डॉक्टर है।
ठीक है, एक काम कर, जाकर इसे वहाँ दिखा कर आ।
डॉक्टर साहब, इन्हें 2 हफ्ते से ज्यादा खांसी हो रही है।
क्या आपको नहीं पता 2 हफ्तों से ज्यादा खांसी होने पर टीबी हो सकता है?
लिखिए डॉक्टर साहब।
ये क्या? इन्हें तो टीबी है।
क्या?
चाहिए टीबी। डॉक्टर बसंती के पास जाइए और HIV का टेस्ट करवाइए।
ओके डॉक्टर साहब। लीजिए बसंती जी।
अरे इसे तो टीबी है। ये लीजिए टैबलेट, इसे 6 महीने तक टाइम टू टाइम दीजिए।
बसंती जी, मुझे खान पीन में कुछ परिवर्तन करना पड़ेगा?
नहीं, आपके खान पीन पे परिवर्तन नहीं करना है। जो मैंने टैबलेट दिया है उसे टाइम टू टाइम लीजिए।
जी।
और ये स्ट्रिप लाइए, दवाई पूरे होने के बाद आपका बलगम का जांच होगा।
सरदार जी, इन्हें तो टीबी की बीमारी हुई है।
क्या? इसे टीबी हुआ है? अब तेरा क्या होगा कालिया?
सरदार, मैंने आपका नमक है सरदार।
एक काम कर, ये ले, अब गोली खा।
मुख्य अतिथि स्वास्थ्य सचिव डॉक्टर अनिल अग्रवाल ने द्वीप समूह के क्षय रोग उन्मूलन कार्यक्रम के वार्षिक रिपोर्ट को जारी किया। डॉक्टर अनिल अग्रवाल ने समारोह को संबोधित करते हुए क्षय रोग और उसके उन्मूलन के बारे में विस्तार से जानकारी दी।
मुझे अच्छे से याद है, या हमारे साथ में जो भी डॉक्टर्स हमारे समकालीन होंगे 80s एंड 90s वाले, उनको पता होगा कि हर मेडिकल कॉलेज में एक टीबी वार्ड होता था और एक टीबी डिपार्टमेंट होता था। और उसको लोग ऐसे भागते थे, चाहे वो पोस्टिंग हो चाहे नॉर्मल हो, ऐसे भागते थे कि जैसे लगता था कोई अस्पृश्यता का एक चिन्ह था। बोलते टीबी पे नहीं जाएंगे, टीबी पे जाएंगे तो ऐसे करेंगे वैसे करेंगे, और डरते थे लोग। आज जो टीबी है वहाँ से उठ करके और आज इस स्थिति पे आ गई है कि इट हैज़ बिकम एज वन ऑफ द डिजीजेस। तो ये इसके लिए सारे डॉक्टर्स का, सारे हमारे मेडिकल स्टाफ का, सारे लोगों का और सारे मेडिकल वर्ल्ड का, नई ड्रग्स का, सबका बहुत महत्वपूर्ण योगदान है कि इस लेवल पे आ गई है कि इट इज़ वेल अंडर द कंट्रोल। दूसरा एस्पेक्ट ये है कि एलिमिनेशन की बातें कब की जाती है। WHO या कोई भी एलिमिनेशन तब कहता है जब उनको लगता है कि डिजीज़ इस लेवल पे पहुंच गई कि इसको हम कंट्रोल कर सकते हैं और इसको ख़त्म भी कर सकते हैं। तो आज ये मौका ऐसा आ चुका है, ऐसी स्टेज आ चुकी है जब हम इसको ख़त्म करने की बिल्कुल ड्योढ़ी पे खड़े हैं, एक कॉर्नर पे, इस पर दहलीज पे खड़े हैं। विद सर्टेन एक्स्ट्रा एफर्ट्स वी कैन डेफिनेटली गेट इट एलिमिनेटेड इन नेक्स्ट फ्यू ईयर्स। तो ये इसीलिए ये बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है। मतलब हमने सबको अचीव कर लिया, एक रीजनेबल लेवल पे कंटेनमेंट कर लिया इस डिजीज़ का। उसके बावजूद हम ऐसी जगह पे खड़े, अगर आज हम कॉम्प्लेसेंसी दिखाएंगे तो ये बीमारी दोबारा से उसी रूप में आ जाएगी। इसमें एक और मैं एक छोटा सा एग्जांपल अपनी पर्सनल लाइफ से देना चाहता हूँ कि मेरे फादर को आज से करीब 15 साल पहले, मैं लेटेंट ट्यूबरक्लोसिस के ऊपर बताता हूँ कितनी सिंपल सी डिजीज कितनी खतरनाक हो सकती है, कि मतलब अनडायग्नोज चल रही थी। माय फादर हैड सम प्रॉब्लम ऑफ हार्ट बर्न। ये मैं आपको बच्चों में अपनी लाइफ से बता रहा हूँ, कुछ चीज़ें मैं किताबों से नहीं बता रहा हूँ, इसलिए ध्यान से सुनिए। ये आपको एग्जाम्पल से मैं आई एम गिविंग ए सर्टेन लेसन्स, सिर्फ अपने पिताजी की कहानी नहीं सुना रहा हूँ मैं। तो उसमें क्या हुआ, उनको लगा पिताजी को कि हमारे हार्ट बर्न हो रहा है, एंड इंसिडेंटली आई वाज वर्किंग इन इंडियाज बेस्ट गैस्ट्रोएंटरोलॉजिकल सेंटर इन इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ लिवर एंड बाइलियरी साइंसेज। मैंने डॉक्टर सलीम साहब को दिखाया, ही इज अ नोन हिपेटोलॉजिस्ट ऑफ वर्ल्ड फेम। तो 3 साल तक उन्होंने, हर बार ऐसा होता था, एंडोस्कोपीज होती थी, उनकी कोलोनोस्कोपी होती थी, बाकी सारे टेस्ट होते थे, और वो कुछ दे करके, कुछ उनको दे करके दवाएं, कुछ एंटासिड्स वगैरह कुछ और दे करके चले आते थे। वो रेमिशंस नहीं होते थे, वो बोलते मुझे रेमिशन में तकलीफ नहीं जा रही है। उनको लेक्सेटिव दे दिए, कभी कुछ और कॉन्स्टिपेशन की दवा। वन फाइन डे आई केम टू नो, ये बच्चों बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट बात बता रहा हूँ और आप लोग उसको मजाक में ले रहे हैं, मैं बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट बात बताने जा रहा हूँ, एंड यू आर टेकिंग इट इज वेरी लाइटली। वन फाइन डे आई वॉज इन माई ऑफिस एट अराउंड 4 PM, आई वॉज टोल्ड माई फादर हैज गॉन इनटू द ऑपरेशन थिएटर। अब आप सोचिए, आप अपने ऑफिस में 4 बजे और मुझे पता भी नहीं पिताजी हैज गॉन टू ऑपरेशन थिएटर। पता चला कि पापा के यहाँ पे चेस्ट पे कोई एब्सेस थी, वो फट गई है, और उसके कारण उनको तुरंत लेकर के हॉस्पिटल ले आ रहे हैं। जब उनकी सर्जरी हो गई, मैं पहुंचा, घर पहुंचा, और पता चला उनको ही हैड ए पल्मोनरी एब्सेस। उस एब्सेस को जब बाद में पैथोलॉजी कराया गया, तो उससे पहले किसी ने बोला कि ये ट्यूबरक्लोसिस हो सकता है, किसी ने बोला कि कैंसर हो सकता है, किसी ने कुछ और। फाइनली हम टाटा मेमोरियल विद इन 24 आवर्स पहुंचे। आई हैड दैट एक्सेस, आई वेंट टू टाटा मेमोरियल। वहां से पता चला कि नहीं, ये केजेटिंग चीज़ी टाइप का है, और इसकी माइक्रोबायोलॉजिकल जांच से पता चला कि ये जो सैंपल है ये ट्यूबरक्लोसिस है, इट इज ट्रीटेबल। जस्ट इमेजिन, जिस बीमारी को ना तो एक छोटी सी चीज़, इसको एक एक्सरे करके हम लोग, या बाकी टेस्ट करके, या मे बी बलगम के टेस्ट से, या कुछ और लेटेंट ट्यूबरक्लोसिस टेस्ट से हम जान सकते थे। हमने बेस्ट वर्ल्ड के डॉक्टर से बेस्ट टेस्ट करवाए, व्हाट आई मीन टू से, बट वी कुड नॉट फाइंड अ ट्यूबरक्लोसिस। तो मेरा कहने का मतलब ये, लेटेंट ट्यूबरक्लोसिस बॉडी के किसी भी पार्ट में हो सकती है। तो जब तक आप लोग लेटेंट ट्यूबरक्लोसिस, खासकर आज के ज़माने में जब एनसीडीज का जो हमारा जो बर्डन है, डिजीज बर्डन ऑलमोस्ट 70% होता जा रहा है, ऑलमोस्ट 80% हो गया है। बच्चों में ओबेसिटी आ रही है, बच्चों में डायबिटीज हो रहे हैं, प्री डायबिटिक हो रहे हैं, तो टीबी का बर्डन एकदम से बढ़ने वाला ही है। तो जब तक लाइफस्टाइल को चेंज नहीं करेंगे और स्क्रीनिंग और बाकी चीज़ों को हम नहीं करेंगे, शायद वही जो इम्यूनिटी हमारी वो लोअर होती जा रही है, तो ये चीज़ें जो बर्डन है कभी ख़त्म नहीं होगा। तो इसलिए मैं आप लोगों से सबसे आह्वान करता हूँ कि मेरी मैडम DHS मैडम से भी गुजारिश है कि मैक्सिमम नंबर ऑफ फीवर क्लिनिक्स हम करें, जो जिनका कोई सब्स्टिट्यूट नहीं है, और जो रिलेटेड केसेस को भी हम फाइंड करने के लिए पूरा प्रयास करें। एंड टेस्टिंग स्टिल इज द गोल्डन रूल, चाहे कुछ भी कहें, क्योंकि हमारा जो बर्डन हम बता रहे हैं, डॉक्टर साहब ने बताया 534 केसेज हैं, या इंसिडेंस रेट है, जो भी है, ये इसीलिए है क्योंकि हमारे पास जो लिमिटेड पॉपुलेशन को हमने टेस्ट किया है, विच आई प्रिज्यूम। अगर हम समस्त पॉपुलेशन को 4,50,000 को, इंक्लूडिंग माइग्रेटरी पॉपुलेशन जो करीब इसकी 30% है, उसको भी हम टेस्ट करेंगे, क्योंकि अगर हमें अचीव करना है, WHO का गोल है 2030, भारत सरकार का गोल है 2025, तो 2025 को अचीव करना हमारे लिए नेक्स्ट टू इम्पॉसिबल है। बट अगर 25 को नहीं तो 26 को नहीं तो 27 को, अदरवाइज हम ये जो नेशनल और इंटरनेशनल जो रेस है टीबी उन्मूलन की, उसमें हम कहीं पिछड़ जाएंगे, एंड इट विल बिकम एन आईसोर इन द नेशनल एज वेल एज इंटरनेशनल दिस थिंग। तो मेरी आप सभी से गुजारिश है, जो भी आज प्रोग्राम हुआ है, ऐसे मल्टीपल प्रोग्राम्स होते रहें, इसी तरह लोगों में जाकर के जन चेतना जगाई जाए, अवेयरनेस की जाए। अभी जैसे ऑयल की तो हम लोग कर ही रहे हैं, ऐसे ट्यूबरक्लोसिस के ऊपर भी जन चेतना बढ़ाई जाए। ऑफ कोर्स जो टीबी क्लिनिक्स बताया है, या कफ कॉर्नर्स हैं, या बाकी चीज़ें हैं, या जो ओरल हाइजीन है, जो हमारा बाकी हाइजीन है, जैसे पहले बोलते थे हैंकरचीफ लेके छींको, ऐसे नहीं करो इस वायरस के लिए, और जो भी प्रिकॉशंस लें। और जो ड्रग देने का काम है, जैसे भी बताया कि MDR ऑलरेडी चल रहा है, तो जो भी MDR रेजिस्टेंट डिजीजेस का, या जो भी डायग्नोसिस और ट्रीटमेंट बहुत ही मतलब समझदारी से विवेकपूर्ण करें, ताकि MDR की जो लेटेस्ट ड्रग्स है उनका रेजिस्टेंस ना बन जाए, अदरवाइज टीबी का खत्म करना असंभव हो जाएगा।
उन्होंने उपस्थिति को टीबी मुक्त भारत की प्रतिज्ञा भी दिलाई।
मैं शपथ लेता हूँ जानकारी की रोशनी से टीबी के डर को मिटाऊंगा, सतर्कता की ताकत से टीबी के भेदभाव को खत्म करूंगा, पूर्ण समर्पण की भावना से मैं भारत को टीबी मुक्त भारत बनाने के यज्ञ में अपना पूरा योगदान दूंगा। टीबी हारेगा, देश जीतेगा।
समारोह के अंत में माइक्रोबायोलॉजिस्ट डॉक्टर कीर्तिवासन ने धन्यवाद ज्ञापन प्रस्तुत किया।
Extend a heartfelt vote of thanks to all of you for joining on this significant occasion of World Tuberculosis Day. Today, we have been truly inspired by the enlightening words of our chief guest, Dr. Anil Agarwal, our Secretary Health. Sir, your invaluable insights and suggestions will serve as a guiding light in our mission to achieve a TB-free Andaman Nicobar Islands. Thank you, sir, for your presence and motivating us towards achieving this crucial goal. A special note of gratitude to Dr. Suja Anthony, Director Health Services and Director ANIMS, for her unwavering support and encouragement. Ma'am, your constant guidance have been instrumental in our efforts to strengthen the TB elimination program. I thank you for your trust and belief in our work. I thank Dr. M.K. Saha, MS GBPen Hospital for gracing this occasion and for his constant support to the program. Our deep gratitude goes to Dr. S.P. Burma, former Joint Secretary NTP. He has been the stalwart in the fight against TB for the last 30 years, and his dedication and leadership has achieved so many national recognition, and we remain inspired by your contribution. Thank you, sir. A heartfelt thanks to our Dr. P. Lal, Joint Secretary NTP, for his insightful presentation on the TB current scenario in our island. Thank you, sir. We are also grateful to Dr. Nataraj, Associate Professor, Department of Respiratory Medicine, ANIMS, for enlightening us on the recent advances of anti-tubercular treatment. Thank you, Dr. I thank doctors and scientists from our ICMR RMRC Institute who have graced this occasion and whose collaborative efforts with our program goes on unrelentlessly to combat this TB. A special mention to Nikshay Mitras for their unwavering support of realizing the vision of our Honorable Prime Minister for TB Mukt Bharat Abhiyan. A heartfelt appreciation to all the program officers, doctors, nurses, community health officers, ANMs, ASHA and other frontline workers for their relentless efforts in combating TB. Thank you. A sincere thanks to the Dean, faculty, students of ANIMS and the principal and students of Nursing School for their active participation and contribution for today's program. Thank you. We also extend our gratitude to all the participants and winners of the various competitions for their enthusiastic participation. I thank our friends from news and media. Thank you for being the voice that carries our message far and wide. Your role in spreading awareness about TB elimination in our community is invaluable. Thank you. A special acknowledgement to Ms. Pincy Kurilla for her graceful comparing of our World TB Day functions over the years. Thank you, ma'am. Lastly, but most importantly, I extend my sincere appreciation to all our NTP fraternity, doctors, district program coordinators, PMDT coordinators, senior treatment supervisors, senior TB laboratory supervisors, laboratory technicians, TB health visitors, accountants, data entry operators, and all our staff. Thank you.